Bobby, if you can call roll, please.
With allegiance. Oh, well, we're doing the
We'll do this
Public
first.
Works Building. Okay, Commissioner Nathan Liker,
Here.
Chair Neil Younger,
Here.
and Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Here.
Okay. The agenda, everybody look at that. So anything needs to be changed, and approval of the prior minutes, anything? Fellas?
No.
Yeah,
I
no
approve.
change.
I approve the minutes, so.
Okay. Consideration of accounts payable, Darren?
Good morning, Darren Myers, County Administrator, Project Manager. For the Public Building Commission this morning, the only accounts payable for 2024, or 2023, sorry, we're not there yet. For 2023 is the 2013 series bonds that we have taken out, and those bonds were in regards to the purchase and remodel of this building, as well as to the remodel of the 601 Main Street, which was the former Health Department. Of those two series of bonds, the first one is actually getting paid off this year, which is good news. That lowers our debt limit for next year, and then at a future budget meeting, we'll discuss the remaining bond payments to go out for this building. There's several series of bonds that are significantly reduced in the coming years, and if we combine 4 years of bond payments together, it's less than the bond payment that we're paying this year. So it might be an option to consider in the future of paying those all off next year and getting that debt from underneath us. But other than that, there's no outstanding payments.
Okay. Thank you. Project manager report?
Moving on, the point of the Public Building Commission was for the remodel of this building in the 601 Main. However, we usually just give updates to different facilities throughout the county that we're doing improvements on. As the commission is aware, we've completed the $1.4 million renovation to the HVAC system at this building, and we currently have on order the emergency generator using ARPA funds that are outside in the parking lot. And then the law enforcement center is the next larger project, just under $1 million, upgrading the HVAC system in that building. Glassman has started the work, the parts are on order, and I believe the last time when we placed order, they were 33 weeks out, so we're probably still 20 weeks out on 4 or 5 months out on delivery for a lot of that equipment. And then there's nothing being currently done in regards, there's no upkeep or projects being done currently at the 601 Main Building. So that essentially is the summary of the project manager report for the PBC.
Okay, thank you. And there's no executive session, so we will adjourn the Ellis County Public Building at 8:34. Okay, I'd like to call the Ellis County meeting to order. If we can all stand, please, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Bobby, if you can call roll, please.
Commissioner Nathan Liker,
Here.
Chair Neil Younger,
Here.
Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, the order of business, there'll be one executive session. Everything else stays the same. Fellow commissioner, do you have a chance to look at the minutes?
I did.
Yeah, look fine.
It was
Everything
good.
good? Okay. How about the consent agenda? Everybody had a chance to look at that?
Yes, sir. I move to approve consent agenda items A through G.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Before I say any issues from people, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring forward?
That's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Jennifer, introduction to new employees.
morning. Jennifer Taylor, Ellis County HR, and I have Will Wallace here. He is a new GIS analyst with our IT department, and he started this week, so we're happy to have him. I also have a new EMT, starting with EMS, that is rounding out our EMS openings, and her name is Kayla Benz, and she will be full-time with us as well. So, thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay, Ellis County Conservation District, Linda?
Sorry, I'm short. Good morning, my name is Linda O'Neill. I am the district manager for the Ellis County Conservation District, and this morning I have with me two of my board members. This is Travis Groff. He is our chairperson right now of our board, and Alan Roth is another one of our board members. And we wanted to just come this morning and give you a quick update about our organization. The main purpose of the Ellis County Conservation District is to have conservation practices on the ground to help stop soil erosion and protect water quality. We do this in a few different ways. We administer what we call cost share funds. We administer those to producers that are needing help with finances to get conservation practices on the ground. We administer the Ellis County Cost Share Fund, which is actually money that we receive from Ellis County. We have the Terrace Enlargement Cost Share Fund, we have the Supplemental Cost Share Fund, and we have the Windbreak Cost Share Fund. And those funds are actually money that the Ellis County Conservation District contributes to those funds. We also have the State of Kansas Water Resource Cost Share Program, and we also have the State of Kansas Non-Point Source Pollution Control Cost Share Funds. Those are actually programs that are administered. Those funds are from the state of Kansas, but our organization, we manage those funds and we administer those funds to get conservation practices on the ground. You should have a sheet of paper in front of you from our district. It looks like this. I wanted to give just a quick update of what our organization has been doing over the last 3 years. We have put a lot of terraces on the ground, whether those are new terraces or whether those are rebuilt terraces. In 2021, we put 38,478 feet worth of terraces on the ground. That equals out to 7 miles. That equals out to 256 acres. That also equals 1,283 tons of soil that we helped prevent from being eroded. In 2022, we put 4.5 miles of terraces on the ground. That equals 157 acres. That equals 782 tons of soil that is not washed away or blown away. In 2023, which we are still working on those contracts, we have put and will put 17 miles of terraces on the ground in Ellis County. Part of those are still under contract and being worked on, and that is going to save Ellis County 2,972 tons worth of soil. Waterways, these are waterways that are being built. These are waterways that are being seeded. In 2021, we did 12 acres worth, and that saved 300 tons of soil. In 2022, we put 7 acres in. We helped with 7 acres worth, and that saved 175 tons of soil. In 2023, we have done 2 acres, which has saved 50 tons of soil in Ellis County. Critical area planting, you can see from the numbers. In 2021, we did 17 acres worth. In 2022, we did 5 acres worth. In 2023, we do not have any planned, but if you go down to the next line, we do have range planting. We do have 24.5 acres planned. We also help with windbreaks. In 2021, we helped 4 farmsteads have windbreaks or shelter belts. In 2022, we did not do any, but in 2023, we are helping 5 farmsteads to have those windbreaks. We have actually 2 of them have been completed, and 3 of them are under contract, and I do believe they are planted. They just need to be checked out, and we need to administer those cost share funds. So this kind of gives you an update of what the Ellis County Conservation District is doing. As of right now, we have 19 applications that we are going through for more cost share funds. So this service is vital to our community. It is vital to our county to help save our county from soil erosion. So thank you.
Thank you. Are any of the range planting or windbreaks helping people recover from the 4 county fires in '21?
Not these specifically, no. I do know that in Russell County, they have quite a few things that are going on to help with those fires, but these specifically are not.
And a lot of that's handled by the FSA.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah. But there's been a lot of effort on fencing,
Right.
all kinds, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Michael, anything?
Give me some insight into what it means to cost share. So the county gives funding to the organization so the developers or farmers or whoever, they pay part, or do you get funding from other sources other than the county?
What we do is we have a process. A producer will come in and say, hey, I want to put terraces on the ground. Is there cost share funds available? They will make an application, and then we will take a look at how much is it going to cost them, how many feet are they going to put on the, put into terraces, and then they will hire a contractor, and that contractor will come in and do the job, and they will get a bill. The producer goes ahead and pays for that bill, they bring the receipt to us, and then based on a percentage of that, we will administer cost share funds. And those cost share funds for all of these programs, they have to apply for them, and my board will take a look at those, the applications, they have to approve the applications, they take a look at the payments, and they have to approve the payments. So we do have a system
The amount
in place.
so it's not a 50/50 or 70/30, or it
There is a
could
cost.
be.
Yeah.
There's a new versus rebuilds, but it's in that range.
Thank you. Appreciate the update.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you guys for the update and, letting our community know where the dollars are going to. It's going to a good cause. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the Historical Society, Amanda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have anybody with me today. I think they took off the training wheels and told me I could go. So bear with me, I have an hour-long slideshow for you. Just kidding. We have been sorry, I'm Amanda Repp with the Historical Society here in Hayes, and we have been so busy, I just want to touch on some points to update you guys. I know this comes right off the heels of 2 other news press releases through Hayes Post, so some of this might be old news to you already, but this is just a picture of our 23 board, who I am so thankful for. All those people are really hard workers, and if you see them in the county, thank them for all the time they put in, because we still are a very small staff. So I want to touch on kind of where we are with the building. That was some of the pictures that we had when I got keys, and kind of the clutter of the basement area that was the main office, and why we weren't in that office. But as you all know, last summer we were able to, you can go ahead and, gut that main room and make it a large open space so that we could use it for multiple purposes. We weren't able to touch any of the outside walls or entrances at this time, but a donation, an anonymous donation of about $30,000 allowed us to renovate that space. And so go ahead and take care of all the mold issues that were in the basement, and within 4 months, June to November, maybe 5 months, we were able to get back in the building. And the next slide, I think, shows some of our renovated space. So we're very proud of it. and I might have spoken with you a little bit about it already before, but we are able to use that space. It has a bookstore in it, our museum store. It does have our offices. Our archives are now organized and located in a place that is accessible. It's not all on the computer cataloged yet, but it's not sitting on the floor or in a closet getting molded. And then the very center of that room can be used for multiple purposes. We have our board meetings there. We have presentations in that space. It can be a commons area. This summer, I don't know if that's the next slide yet. Oh, sorry, I'll go back to that. I put this together really quick for you this morning because I wanted to show. This summer, we will have a traveling exhibit from the Smoky Hill Museum out of Salina. That will be down there. It's called Notorious, and they come and set it up for us so that we didn't have to spend a lot of time on revamping a new exhibit while we're doing all these other things. So we collaborated with them, and they're bringing in one. It'll be free to the public as well. The upstairs firearms exhibit will still be on display. You can see both this summer. So this space was really a prominent reason why we needed to get back in that building and be able to utilize it again, and I think we're making great space with it. So if you go on, Darren. I just wanted to share, I can't remember if last time, if we were right before our trivia night or right after our trivia night, but it was a really, really big success. I think we had 8 or 10 teams there. I think we netted about $2,000 from our very first ever trivia night, and we hope to do it every year. So we are out in the community and doing things. That top picture is one of our board members, Jerry Brown. He brings in some of his high school students once a month to do volunteer work, whatever it may be, yard work or cleaning or moving artifacts. At this time, they were making centerpieces for our volunteer appreciation banquet that we had this year that they hadn't had for a couple of years again. So we can move on. Those are our sponsors that helped us with our trivia night. We just want to make sure we thank them every possible time that we can because we couldn't do any of this without them, obviously. So this is the Notorious exhibit that I talked about. We know that the firearms exhibit is very one of the things that draws people in, so we wanted to keep that up. We are adding some Indian artifacts and a few weapons that weren't on display last year to that exhibit up in the Stone Church, but you'll also be able to see this, and we can go on, sorry. And then I wanted to announce to anyone that's got free time on a Tuesday night that we are going to start doing a Tuesday night work night for volunteers. That every Tuesday of every second Tuesday of the month, we're going to get together with anybody that wants to help, drop in, stay for the entire 2 hours, stay for an hour, come just say hi and see what we're doing. We're going to be doing a lot of outside work this summer, and maybe in the wintertime do a little bit more of the artifact stuff from the inside. So I'm trying not to talk, or trying to go a little bit fast, so. And then the big thing that I just wanted to share with you guys, and I can't remember if I'd shared this already, but we are into phase 2. We got that. We are back in the building. We are inside and utilizing our building, but that phase 2 is to really work on the infrastructure of the building so that we can save it and utilize it. These are some of the numbers that we have projected for the cost of that. Obviously, the largest portion of that is the new HVAC system, which is really important. And we already have a contract through Glassman to start that process. And we've already replaced the gutters. Obviously, you've seen maybe the work being done on the masonry outside the building at the moment. That $88,000 is being covered by a grant through the state, a Heritage Trust Fund grant. And then we've raised from private donations around $50,000 for phase 2 for the basement accessibility portion of that. We've already started on the ADA restroom, which will be completed maybe in about 2 weeks. And then we will start on the south side. I think you can go through and I'll show you a little bit of what we plan on doing. That's a drawing of what will be on the south side of the building. We're hoping to add at least 2 handicapped accessible parking areas and add a ground level entrance to that side. There is an entrance there, but it has about 5 steps. It will go directly into our curator lab, which will then go into the offices in that main space. I think there's just another picture of possibly what it could look like. Obviously, it's not exact, but we got this feasibility study through help from the Heartland Community Foundation. It helped us pay for this feasibility study, so we are on pace and on track for Phase 2. I did want to make a little bit of an announcement. In the coming weeks, we will be releasing more of the details for it, but we have a very significant, generous gift that we will be receiving, and so it puts us right on track to finish up Phase 2 and go ahead and start Phase 3 fundraising by January. And that is a very significant amount, and I think it really shows the community support that we've gotten in quite a little bit of time. So if you can go forward. I just wanted to touch again on the Heritage Trust Fund grant, and we can go through. I just wanted to show just a few pictures of the work they've been doing. We did have, a concerned citizen call us and ask what kind of stuff we were putting in that building, because they saw someone drove by and they saw them having caulk guns. And they're like, you can't use caulk on those. You can't use those artificial materials on there. And our contractor gave me all the specs of the things that they were using, and it's also approved by SHPO, by the State Preservation Office. So everything is up and up. They were using those around different window seals, and that was totally acceptable. So, but they're almost done. One thing that we have run into is they gave us that contract about 18 months ago, they gave me that bid, and the northeast corner of the limestone building has shifted significantly more from 18 months ago. And so now we need to instead of just shoring up and rebuilding that corner, they don't feel comfortable doing that if we don't have a foundation work, which originally they thought that they could address that without that, but it has shifted significantly. So a little bit more of the cost that we didn't think was going to be there, but I don't remember what else I have on here. Is that it? That's it? No? Okay, that's it. I did want to go ahead and also thank you for your allowance from last year for the 2023, because we have hired 2 part-time people through for Ellis County. We have an administrative assistant that's 20 hours a week and a archival assistant that's also working about 15 hours a week. So we are getting a lot done with my board members, and now up to 4 part-time staff. So we're excited and hope you guys are excited and pleased with what we're doing. Do you have any questions? I'm trying to...
You want to touch on St. John's Place a little bit?
I will. I'm trying to keep that under wraps because I thought I would have really exciting news for you guys today. I checked that website a couple times a day, but it still has not been released. So I think Jeff was in here a couple weeks ago talking about the Abode grant and the Sprint grant that we were applying for are both out of the same office, and their grant deadline was not extended. Ours was extended by about 14 to 15 days. So we're probably about 3 weeks behind any releases, but we did apply, and I believe you guys sent a letter of recommendation for us, but I did, our total was about $5.3 million to create that into a sister site. There's a large gallery space that would focus on Walker Army Airfield, Volga German heritage, Angus cattle, and oil industry. But one thing we decided to add once we had the opportunity for this grant is a discovery type center for children. And if we get the entire ask, that's my highlight of what we would really like to do. There's one in Manhattan, there's some in Topeka and Kansas City, but there's nothing really out here for it. It would focus on the industries that children can learn about and can be interested in rural Kansas. So some activities that would focus around ag or wheat or oil production, and then also lots of hands-on activities and ways to pursue those kinds of adventures, so.
Very good, thank you.
Amanda, hats off to you. Kudos to you. You guys
I
took
can't do
on
it
a
alone.
big
Thank you.
chore, and you guys are succeeding. You're doing fundraisers. You're just,
It's starting to snowball. I love it. So I just want to be able to keep up with it. So we will be back in a month to show you our budget. So, but
I do believe, and I'm going to speak for the whole community, I do believe they understand and appreciate what you and your board members and all the hours that you got in.
I hope a lot of people
Thank
come
you.
out and see us this summer. Check out we had about 100 people come through for the art walk just this last weekend. We've had almost 200 people just wander in the doors since we've been open January 1st, and we don't have a whole lot to see yet. They're excited, I think. They share your enthusiasm. So I'm excited to see them this summer, and we'll keep at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, the City of Victoria, the island annexation, John Schulte.
Good morning. John Schulte, Mayor of Victoria. The city has had a request from the Al Pfeiffer family to annex in a portion of the field just east of town. It is not touching our city limits, but it is very close. So that is why it is being considered an island annexation, and that is why I have to be here to make the request of the county. Bill, am I stating that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. The plan is to bring in part of the field as commercial and leave part of the field as ag as well. That was the request of the family. So,
Will the adjoining property next to it be impacted at all?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Anything, Michael?
No.
Will this cause any problems doing island annexation for the future that you can see, John?
I don't believe so. We're actually the only portion that they wanted to annex in was about 2 or 3 acres, and since it is an island annexation, I suggested that they go ahead and annex the whole field in all 6 acres so that they would not have to do something if future expansion does become a reality.
And it was nice of Mr. Piper to turn loose a piece of property.
Absolutely.
Because those little parcels like that, people don't like to give them up, so thank him for that to help the community grow.
I agree.
Yeah.
Hey, gentlemen?
I have no other questions, really.
Okay.
What's the motion? Well, I'll move to approve the island annexation for Pfeiffer properties specified in the attachments for the city of Victoria.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you so
John.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, the KRAF grant, Danita. Good morning.
Good morning. Danita Schrader, Ellis County EMS Director. In December, I had come forward asking for permission to apply for the Kansas Revolving and Assistant Fund to help offset some costs with purchasing some new EKG monitors. We were approved. We received notification in April that the Board of EMS will pay for 25% of the cost of the, I applied for 4 new monitors to go in our 4 first main units. We're just starting to see some wear and tear on those monitors, and the cost of getting them fixed is significant, and I just figured it'd be easier just to start our replacement plan now, and every couple of years I would like to replace a couple more monitors. But this will help us start with the beginning of that. The total amount is $122,726, and the Board of EMS will pay for, I had it here, $30,681. I will pay for the entire cost up front, and then they will reimburse us the amount that they are allowing us. I guess any other questions?
The replacement of these monitors, that was, you had scheduled that for
Yes,
this year regardless of whether you received the grant or not.
I have planned for this in my capital budget and starting replacement on it. I would like to, like I said, do the first 4 main ones and then do a couple the next couple of years, just so we don't have the entire, I have 9 total, so have the entire amount due at once just doesn't make any sense. So I'd like to replace them over the next couple of years just to get them all replaced.
Is there any value with the ones that you're going to be removing?
They are giving us an allowance of about 6,000, let me see here what the total amount was. It was 6,500 per monitor, so
Oh, okay.
we'll be getting back 26,000, and that's figured into the quote
Okay.
too as well, so.
Michael, you have anything? Yes, I just have one question is, how many weeks out are these?
She told me actually they're only like 3 to 6 weeks, so they're
That's
not
not
that
bad.
bad really,
Okay,
once we place the order.
Okay.
very good.
Well,
Okay, do I hear a motion?
yeah. I'll move to approve PO number 7726 in the amount of $122,726.48 to purchase 4 Zoll X Series EKG monitors.
Second.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion approved.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, just add something real quick.
Okay.
As we spoke on the phone last night, I did want to make a comment. We did have a individual in the community that passed away and left part of his estate to both Ellis County EMS and to the Ellis County Sheriff's Office. And a part of his intention with those funds was not to be directly deposited into the county's general fund and essentially be lost without having essentially a dedicated purpose as like a grant to purchase or to reimburse equipment or items that the EMS director or the sheriff would be beneficial to their departments. So as part of that, it's several $100,000, but I'm just asking that the commission would be in favor of creating a new fund for that grant, for that donation, and that would be dedicated to the future items for EMS and the sheriff's office. They do have some items, and I know Danita is discussing some of that as potentially helping to offset maybe this cost of these cardiac monitors. But I just wanted to make sure that the commission was okay with creating that new fund to deposit those checks into for future use. And just make sure that there's no questions or concerns.
I think that's a great idea, and that's for the individual's wishes, so I would be in favor of that.
Michael, anything?
Yeah, my general thought is that's fine. And, yeah, honor the wishes of the deceased and take care of the items in the county that he wanted to take care of, so I think it works.
It's definitely a unique situation and
It is.
very appreciative of the individual for keeping those departments in his thoughts after his death. And we'll get that fund set up and give you updates when there's any plans or ideas to use the funds.
Yep.
Are we able to show gratitude to that person
We're the
maybe
first.
at a later date?
Correct, yes, we could. The first option we had, I've received these checks, and since we didn't have, or the sheriff and the treasurer actually received some of the funds too, we just want to get the funds deposited so the checks can be cashed and they're not out there. And then as the sheriff and Danita and I discuss it more, we come up with some type of plan on the funds, but also maybe a future statement or something that we could do to show appreciation to the individual, or that way if there's any other family of his that are out there, that they also can be known what's actually being done and being done towards his wishes.
I think that sounds great.
I would, on what my fellow commissioners would say, but I would say, unless there's some stipulation in there, but I would like to see some kind of a memorial for this individual, unless he doesn't want his name or their name out there, but that would be nice if that would be allowed. So that's something maybe we can look into, if there's family members around, or
Not sure how much recognition the individual was wanting, but it was going through the Hayes Med Foundation.
Okay.
and his executive, I'll visit with him some more, and we'll figure out something that would be appropriate.
All right, okay, thanks, Darren. Okay, Public Works, Brennan, for the summer hours.
Morning, Commissioners. Brendan McKay, Ellis County Public Works Director. So before you is a request from my department to go to our summer hours from Memorial Day to Labor Day to assist with our asphalt sealing season. A lot of counties neighboring us, they've gone to a 4-day year-round, or they switch at the time change. For us, what works best for us is a switch after Memorial Day and go till Labor Day. So it'll be June 5th to August 31st, and then the 4th of July week, we'll work 4/8, so that way we're not getting any additional leave time for having that holiday in there.
Gentlemen, any
It's pretty
issues with
standard.
that? Pretty standard. is it?
Pretty standard. Just a, I guess, kind of comment, not really about this, but in general, just summer hours and in your departments. One of the topics that was discussed is trash pickup along 240th and kind of hopefully making that a little bit more of a priority.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Is that with these hours, or
It
how we
can be.
might manage that?
It could be. We could also pull people in on overtime on Fridays or instead of the weekend to pick up more trash. I mean, we get a call, we're out there that day. Most weekends, I get a call from dispatch or from a concerned citizen, so I'm out picking up tires or trash on Saturdays and Sundays. So
Okay.
if you see my mileage report, there's miles on there on the weekends that when I've gone out and picked up a down sign, or because it doesn't cost the county any extra if I go out and do it. So,
Okay.
but that can be something we discuss as well.
Yeah, let's
or-
continue to kind of look to what our solution is for some of those areas. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Brennan. You may as well just stay right up there.
Yep.
For the bridge
Do we need
application.
we don't need a motion for that? Okay.
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, the KLBI application for the bridge closure.
Yep. So KLBIP, I'll give you a little bit of history on it. Prior to 2022, it was $150,000 for a bridge structure on an FAS route. So those are our bridges that only have 3 numbers, not the 8-number bridges. Those are the priority thoroughfares throughout the county, connecting the cities together. If you closed a structure out, you got $50,000 for that structure you closed towards the project you wanted to replace if you were awarded the grant. With the additional funding from BIL that was offered to the state, myself and the other members of the Kansas County Highway Association met with KDOT and made some changes to that grant, because there's a lot of these larger structure bridges that are on FAS routes that there's no grant for. That $150,000 was only meant for like a 50-foot bridge or shorter. You could use that money for a $2 million bridge, but it doesn't help a lot of these counties out with those structures. So this is one of those changes that we made. The other changes that KDOT proposed was increasing it from $50,000 for any bridge to $1,000 per linear foot. In the past, the county's done this and closed out a bridge. I wanted to come before the commissioners, and that way the public is aware to have more discussion about this. If you approve this grant, it doesn't mean that bridge will be closed there on 12th Street. It would be come back before the commission again, but I wanted your approval to proceed with applying with this grant, but that bridge is a closure item to receive approximately $232,000 in funding. With the way the grant is written now, we would have no cost for the cost share. The only cost we would have would be the non-participating costs, which would be the preliminary engineering, any right-of-way acquisition, and any utility relocation that would have to take place for the bridge we're applying to replace. A little bit about 820 12th Street Bridge. Just like 8th Street, it's partially in the city limits. On the county road system, on our county line roads, both us and our neighbors share costs for maintenance and replacement of structures. County paid 100% for the cost when 8th Street failed back in 2008. They also looked at 12th Street Bridge at the same time. Engineer's recommendation was patching and overlaying was not economical at that time, just due to the amount of delamination on that deck. So nothing happened. In 2015, the county hired another engineer to look at 12th Street Bridge, determine a solution for it. They came back, patching and overlaying is not an economical solution. Because if you look through this for FAS 120 with all the attachments I included, you can see why just patching and overlaying that deck is not economical, because for $100,000 more, you could have a brand-new deck, another 75 years of life versus 25, 30 years you would get from an overlay and a patch. I feel like I've talked a lot. The detour for, if 12th Street Bridge was closed, is a 0.3-mile detour to get down to 8th Street Bridge. When 450 failed, if your vehicle was under 3 tons, it was a 4 miles detour to get around that bridge. If you were over 3 tons, it's 9.6 miles. You had to go down south through the open range. Or you could try and button hook and only be 5.5 miles away, but that was a over 90-degree turn on 2 40-foot right-of-way roads. So a truck and trailer were not going to fit through there. So it was 9.6 miles. If this FAS 120 were to fail and we have to close it, it's a 4.6 mile detour on those rock roads up there in the county. We met with the city staff, actually right before 450 failed. I was meeting with the staff that day. City staff is not interested in taking ownership of the bridge, and they're fine with the county closing that bridge if that's what the commission decides to do. It doesn't fit in their plans for their growth and their development. From talks I've had at my level, and if you've spoken with Toby, Darren, they don't see a benefit of keeping that structure open to traffic. And if it was closed, it's closed to vehicle traffic, so no cars, no trucks, no UTVs, no ATVs, no motorized vehicles. But bike and foot traffic can still go across it. Are there any more questions, or?
Yeah, I do a little bit,
Sure.
Brennan. So you've had discussions with the city level, and Darren's had discussions, it sounds like. Has the city, I mean, where's the county-city line at? So people understand where is the line of the county? Where does the county end and the city begin?
Roughly the west bank of the bridge there.
So right on the approach of the bridge is technically in the city.
A good portion of it, yeah, I would say.
Okay. And the city hasn't publicly come out in a public discussion and said, we're not going to take the bridge, have they?
I don't know if they've ever brought it before them.
We've never invited the city or their staff to a commission meeting or went to one of their commission meetings to publicly state it. I do have email confirmation from the city manager stating that they have no concerns on closing the bridge, nor do they have any public safety concerns on closing the bridge as well.
Okay.
Which I could forward that to you if you would like to see.
I would like to see it just for information purposes. Okay. So, but to reiterate, what we're doing here today is we are not voting to close this bridge at this time. We are simply.
Correct. You're voting to, or not even voting, you're giving me approval to
put it on our
apply
application
for this KLBIP application, including that as closure. You can decide, if we're awarded the grant, you decide, no, we don't want to close it. Commission did that 2 years ago. They ended up following through with the closure that was submitted, but it wasn't brought as to the public's attention as much. If you decide not to and backtrack on it, it will reflect negatively for us for any future grants, but it's not like there's no takes backsies. You can decide not to.
Okay.
At that point in time. But this would be, if we're awarded the grant, we would intend on closure of that to vehicle traffic.
Okay.
Michael?
Have we used this bridge in a grant application prior? Will this be
No.
the first opportunity? So-
This is our first opportunity.
So I guess my first question is, if we use this bridge to apply for the grant and we don't get the grant, regardless of whether we approve it or not, but the grant, what are our options then with this bridge?
The options are, if you want to like to keep it open, total new deck. Just patching holes on it, putting a hot mix overlay on it is the worst thing you can do to that bridge, because you trap all that moisture in there. So that the deck, you can see the potholes. The potholes are concerning, but they're not the most concerning part. You've got layers of delamination in there. As you saw on our road tour, when we took the chain and drug it across, you could hear those hollow spots. That's where that concrete is pulling away from the metal that makes up the strength of that deck. So there's holes there that just haven't shown up yet. That's why it's not recommended to chip out all those holes, mill down the surface, put 1.5 or 2 inches of a polymer concrete overlay on it, because the cost would be almost identical to a replacement deck. And that's still not taking into consideration the bearings and the bearing supports and the expansion joints. Those have to be redone as well.
Do we have a cost estimate of what that would cost?
You're looking like $1.3 million for all of that?
If this bridge were used for the grant and essentially you have to close it, does that mean that it's closed permanently? Or could we put together like a 10-year plan to say we're going to
It
reopen
would
this
be
bridge?
closed. You would need a new structure, basically. You could still reuse it, but you could still reuse the piers potentially and the abutments. But at the same time, it's a very narrow bridge. I wouldn't recommend going back with just a new deck on it with its current width, so there'd have to be engineering studies
I
done
think the
on.
plan would certainly be to fully replace it if that, but I just want to make sure that
Yes, you can
by
put
the
a-
grant application, that the state says you're closing a pour to improve the overall system, that we're not essentially locked into permanently saying,
No, we can
we'll
go-
never, ever be able to go back.
Just like if we build a road that hasn't existed before, we can add a bridge to our system. So this
Okay.
will be taken off of our system, but the county could come back in 5 years, 10 years, or tomorrow and decide, no, we want to fund this structure. We feel it's vital to the growth of our county.
Then it would be a new structure at that time. and-
That's what I would recommend. A new deck at the minimum.
Right.
Commission would like that.
But
We haven't done an engineering study to see if those piers can support additional width or cantilevered beams to gain that width. Because if you recall, 3 of you, we drove across it. It's like the bridge on by the Yosemite elevator. It's part of the original alignment of Old 40. It wasn't built to today's size equipment and vehicle traffic. It's a narrow bridge. They used to do creek studies on there for water levels. The state quit doing that years ago, from what I've been told, because the safety for their operators, because there wasn't enough room for walking lanes on there or a sidewalk for them to safely get out, check their equipment, and get back off. They felt it was too narrow for that.
But I guess the question is, maybe rephrase it a little bit. We put it on and get it accepted and close the bridge at some point in time. The following day, we could come back and say, we want to do that bridge, and it would be a totally new building project on our system.
Yep. Have a new number, too.
The application, try to get back to them, got a couple screens open here, sorry. On that tip, it says there, KLBIP, to replace or rehabilitate locally owned pour bridges. Are they going off the pour bridges that are on the CLIP tool, which shows Ellis County? We have 195 total bridges. 11 of them
Have a poor rank.
are a poor rating.
Yes.
So are those those 11 bridges are essentially what we can use in this grant application to either close
No,
or
it can be any bridge. It could be,
rehabilitate and
a brand-new structure you decide to close for additional funding.
okay,
What the grant you can apply for a replacement structure on has to be ranked
to be
poor.
used on one of those 11 that we have.
Correct. And of those 11,
Just to
some
play
of those are,
devil's advocate then,
Yeah.
we could essentially use another bridge for this grant and replace 12th Street Bridge.
correct,
Because 12th Street is one of the 11 that's rated poorly.
correct. I feel with the outages caused by other ones that are rated poor and the amount of detour for traffic,
Right.
that 12th Street is a higher priority. Those other ones are higher, because at a minimum, it's a 3-mile detour for any bridge outside of city limits to get around the bridge that's closed. It's a straight line, it's like 611 feet from bridge deck to bridge deck between the two. So there's a crossing over the railroad right there, just to the west of the bridge, to get around. It's 0.3 miles to detour around the structure. Is it inconvenient? It's 0.3 miles. When I can't go the way I want to go, it's inconvenient to me. But at the same time, we have all these other systems that need improvement that are going to cause larger outages for the population of this county and those traveling through the county. And some of those poor ranked bridges, the bridge may be awesome. It could be a brand new bridge, but if the channel alignment is off, the channel's skewed, that can lower your rating enough to be poor. We have some structures where the channel alignment's off, the bridge is fine, but the channel alignment's bad, or the road alignment's bad, and it brings the rating down to a poor rating. So that on our capital plan that I'm putting together for you in the next month, you'll see more of those 11 bridges on there. Some of them are not this old or in this bad a condition, but the problem is the channel alignment has moved and is now causing more concerns for us, dropping the rating down, that the channel has to be redone or the bridge has to be realigned to line up with the channel to bring the rating up. And a few of those as well that are poor are on the off-system. This grant's only for on-system bridges. The off-system grant is just for off-system bridges, so the bridges that have 8 numbers, like the one south of Walker that the county applied for last fall and got awarded. Down there, 6.5, 7 miles south of Walker on 370th Avenue. That's one of our poor structures that's being replaced as well. So if this goes forward, this is approved, we get the grant awarded, you approve closure, that brings our 11 down to 8, because we'll have 3 structures that are either being replaced or removed.
And are you working towards we got to systematically figure this out. That's kind of the bigger issue is we don't have a 5 or even 10 or 15 year, and these bridges
Correct.
are failing, and we're in a position where we have to leverage one bridge for others to maintain
Correct.
a system. So that certainly has to be a part of this discussion, is figuring out what our long-term plan is. In addition to that question then, is that part of the plan is to continue to use this process? So if that's what we're looking at doing for 12th Street this year, are we looking at another bridge next year to close to rehab another one and another one? Are we looking at shrinking down our bridge population, for lack of a better term, and have to go through this kind of commission?
I'd say yes and no.
Take.
When we applied for this one, we found another structure that is just at the bridge limit. Drainage and hydrology study shows it not being required to be a bridge. So it needs work. It's got stringers that are in poor shape. The intent with that one is to replace it with either a precast structure or CMP, which would bring it down to not a bridge size. So we're effectively closing a bridge, but the road's never permanently closed. It'll be closed while we replace it. We're taking a structure from a bridge, downsizing it to an appropriate size, which is now considered a culvert, even though it'll look like a bridge, smell like a bridge, but its determination of a bridge is greater than 20 feet. It's at roughly 20 feet right now. So we could pull that off our system right now today, and we could get $50,000 for this project. The intent with this one was that bridge should have been replaced probably in 2005. We're now, this many years later, the can's been kicked down the road, and it's not like a fine wine. Bridges don't get better with age. They just continue to fail.
Brennan, for public knowledge, how old is that bridge?
I don't have that number from me. I believe it was a 1934 construction. 1940?
That's what your memo says.
Okay, 1940 then.
Okay, so we're talking an 80-plus-year-old structure.
Yep. And you get about 75 years of life out of a bridge before you do a major overhaul to the deck, the bearings. So that deck actually sits on metal bearings when we went underneath it. Those bearings allow the bridge, because concrete, and like everything else, moves with temperature. It expands and contracts. That's why you also have those little bumps at the ends of every bridge where you have an expansion joint to allow that bridge to swell and shrink. That expansion joint's gone on those. So water now gets in those bearings. So at a minimum, you have to take the deck, raise it up, or completely remove it, sandblast the bearing holders, replace it with new bearings, and then also look at all your piers, see if those bearings need help as well, or if they're welded on, what you have to do in order to keep it up for current standards.
According to your records, has there been any major repairs done to this bridge within the past 80 years?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So, okay.
I guess the only thing I gotta say, first we gotta apply even before we do make any kind of decision. So that's the first step. And like Commissioner Liker said, if we do redeck it, it is annexed into the city. Maybe we can partnership up with them, do a half share. It's I'm just throwing some,
Yeah.
some ideas and out there, so.
Yeah. Because when the 8th Street Bridge failed in 2008, when it had a hole open up in the deck, the county paid for 100% of the cost. And that bridge is also similar to this one where it partially annexed into the city limits, but not entirely.
Can I make a few points when you're at that stage, please?
I have no more questions for
No,
Brendan at this time.
I have a few more questions, but as I kind of gather my thoughts, I'm more than happy to hear from whoever.
You want to reintroduce the public guidelines?
I contacted Darren a couple years ago about this, and
If you could state your name, please.
going to, my name's John T. Bird. I'm an attorney here in Hayes, practiced law here for 47 years. Incidentally, I'll tell you, I've attended 4,000 city meetings in my life, and I can tell you when I heard a presentation like the one I just heard, I realize I'm being told something that might be intended to steer me in a certain direction, and obviously that's what your Public Works Director is doing, and that's his job. But my job here today is to tell you some of the facts. And you don't have the facts yet. In other words, you can't make the decisions that your director is asking you to make without the facts. And just as an example, his memo in this matter says that this bridge is a mile west of Hayes. That's what it says. Well, that's not true. As a matter of fact, he now says it's in Hayes, partially. And that makes a difference. The county doesn't even know what the boundary lines are on the west side of Hayes, apparently. That's what I've discovered. There's a boundary resolution passed every year by the city of Hayes that defines it. And if you look at it, this bridge was excluded from the city limits, it appears. That goes back to a lot of politics probably between city commissioners and county commissioners in decades past. But the fact of the matter is, one uncontrovertible fact is that this bridge is all in Ellis County. The fact that there's a city limit involved shouldn't be part of your decision-making. It's the city of Hayes is in Ellis County. And I think it's imprudent for you to treat it as though somehow it's an island, like we're talking about over in Victoria, an island annexation, that somehow you're taking that out of the county. The people of Hayes pay their taxes just like everybody else. In fact, they pay probably close to 65% of the taxes in Ellis County. So I just want you to be thinking of this from the point of view of who's going to pay for it. Well, the taxpayers are going to pay for it. Now, it may be the state taxpayers that pay for it to the extent that we obtain funding from there, but the bottom line is that the taxpayers pay for all of this stuff, and the fact that the county has only partial ownership of this bridge apparently shouldn't be the deciding factor. Here's the deal. This bridge was not maintained properly. It has been left as an orphan child to create the situation you're now faced with. Somebody decided, and not publicly, many years ago, that this bridge was just going to be surplus, that it didn't need to exist. And I don't think you have the data to know why it exists. And let me just point out to you an obvious question. Why, if this bridge doesn't belong where it does, open, why are there exits off of the Highway 183 alternate 3/4 of a mile west of it, with no other entrance onto this road, onto Rome Road, anywhere in the vicinity? Did anybody ask the state engineer about what this has to do with the alternate? I don't think so. You know that the state is getting ready to spend $18 million to rehab Highway 183 alternate from South Main all the way up to the truck stop that doesn't exist. They're going to spend $18 million And I don't think I heard one word or saw one word in the data on this that indicates the state of Kansas has been asked what the effect would be on Highway 183 alternate. I mean, I'd be interested in hearing from you today. Why do you think those exits are there?
It's probably a KDOT question, like you said, nobody back then.
Well, I'm going to
said-
guess, Neil, that they had traffic counts.
Sure.
And the traffic counts would be legitimate for you to look at to see what was happening back then. That alternate was built in the 60s, 66, I think. And I'm pretty familiar with the lay of the land out there since I was born there. I think that the state will tell you that they put those exits there because they knew 12th Street and 8th Street existed and that they needed to make sure to serve both sides of the railroad tracks. The other thing I think that hasn't been considered properly is what is the effect if a train blocks the intersections through the city of Hayes? And don't think that's not a possibility. Your county manager, I think, probably was one of the firemen who sat out at Main and Vine Street for 2 weeks while we cleaned up the mess from one of the Union Pacific derailments. I have personally seen all of those intersections blocked at times when the UP, for its own reasons, decides to park there. Now, it may only be for an hour or so, but during that time, if you have an emergency in South Hayes and need to get the emergency vehicles across the railroad tracks, think about it. The 12th Street Bridge becomes one of your best alternatives. And the idea that this is a 3/10 of a mile detour is not accurate at all. Yeah, it may be 3/10 of a mile to drive all the way to what would be the dead end on 12th Street on the east end, and then to cut over the railroad tracks. But you then have caused everybody that was going to travel on that road and does today to cross those railroad tracks. It's an unsignaled, it's marked, it doesn't have any mechanical signals. The trains come through there at the speed that they're allowed to come through. So everybody will have to cross that. I don't know, I haven't seen the traffic counts that you were presented with. What's the traffic count across this bridge daily now? What was it back when it was in better shape? What was it when the alternate was first put into place? You've got all that data available to you if you ask your county administrator to go get it. People will have to drive over to 8th Street, drive into town past the main entrance of Fort Hays State. Then to get back to the north side, they're going to have to cross the tracks again. And that is not safer. It is not more convenient. It is not wise traffic planning. Go down to 12th Street, to 8th Street and Elm in the morning when everybody's going to work at Fort Hays State and see what happens when one of those trains blocks that intersection. It's not a good thing. And if you then put all the traffic, somehow they get across to 8th Street and come back into town that way, you're exacerbating it. You've got the sports complex that's contributing a tremendous amount of traffic out there that I don't think is being taken into account. 12th Street is an outlet and an inlet for the city of Hayes. Every morning, the city of Hayes is like an animal. It grows, it takes a breath, and it gets about 4,000 to 5,000 people bigger. And then in the evening, it exhales, and those people leave. And they leave by all different places. But I'm going to submit to you, this road is one of the main ways that people come and go from Hayes. So yes, it's inconvenient, but it's also unsafe for no reason. There's no reason to create an unsafe situation. And the other factor here is that I think that you're, again, being asked to make a decision and you don't really know what the facts are as far as what is coming in the future. What is going to be the effect of exit 157? What's going to happen out there on 12th Street? You're going to have more trucks, apparently. You're going to have a truck stop up there. You're going to have a lot more traffic. That's already, I think, the second most traveled road in Ellis County after Vine Street already, because of the sports complex and Gross Memorial. So you've got a lot of moving parts, and you haven't defined how they fit together. And so here's what I'm asking you to do. Step back, take a deep breath, contact the chief engineer, KDOT, find out what the data is, and let the public have some say-so in this too. Because this is not being done in a democratic way at all. The fact of the matter is that these decisions have been being made by people who are not elected, not you folks, the people that work for you and the people who work for the city, and there has never been a public discussion about it until today. And I think you need to stop and get the facts and then take some input from the public. Thank you. Do you have any questions about?
Mr. Burt, I do have a question for you.
Sure.
And I know where you're located at, and you use this bridge on a daily basis, more than likely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's been there, 80 years, and you've obviously observed there's been no major work done to it.
No.
Have you ever presented anywhere, the city or to the county prior?
Yes.
Because my memory here is very short, obviously.
I have. I've asked 4 city managers to keep their eye on it. At one point, when Hannes Zacharias was here, he told me that they had just decided, staff had just decided they just closed 12th Street. And I said, have you thought about that? How are you going to get your fire trucks back out to the alternate if you close 12th Street and there's a derailment? And, I'm not trying to be Chicken Little here, but trains do come off the tracks, and they do haul a lot of ethanol up and down those tracks. I just watched last night while a 103-car tanker car train came by, once empty and then full. And God forbid it comes off the tracks, but if it does, you don't have to have a great imagination to figure out what could happen. And I just think it's poor, so I told the city manager at the time, I said, I think that's poor planning. And I said, you ought to look at the effect of that. Well, at that point, he changed his mind. He didn't take it to the commission. I brought it up to the next city manager. We talked about it. I talked to Darren's predecessors about it. At that point, I was asking them to please just spend a little money to fix what you got. Because if this had been maintained properly, we wouldn't be having this discussion. That's just a fact. And the last time I asked your staff to do something about this, I said, just repair it enough that it's safe for the public to use. And I was told that you could not patch it because it would make it too heavy. And I said, well, if you're just putting back what's been removed, I don't think that's the issue. And then I was told, well, if you do that, then water will deteriorate the bridge. And I'm not a bridge builder, but I think there are ways to combat that, at least on a short-term basis. But to just let it sit there like it does right now is criminal. It's not good stewardship of your property. And it is something that, honestly, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They tell me that they aren't going to fix it because it needs to be closed, and now they tell us it needs to be closed because it wasn't fixed. And the fact of the matter is, it's going to cost more money to do something about it. I know that. But I don't think we've actually explored the possibilities of the money that's available at the state level either. I offered to Darren at one point to help in Topeka to the extent I could. And maybe, I do represent people all the time in my law practice who have problems with the state and the bureaucracy. And once in a while, I even have a governor or somebody like that who will sit down and actually listen to us on things. So we haven't done that. You guys went to Washington, D.C. recently, and I don't know if this was something that was discussed, but it's the kind of thing that ought to be. And so to answer your question, yes, I've asked that this be taken care of, and it fell on deaf ears. Now, I gave you pictures of it. For the first time this week, somebody went in and put some asphalt at the west entrance to that bridge. I don't know who did it. I don't even know if the county did it or not. I hope it was. But so it's not, I slow down to 10 miles per hour. Of course, on the other end of the bridge, there's usually, well, not usually, oftentimes they're running a speed check, and I thought, that's the least likely place anybody's going to come speeding into the city of Hayes, because you literally can't drive across it faster than 10 or 15 miles an hour right now. You could plant flowers in those potholes right now if you've been out there. And so I would ask that you at least tell your staff, now we're being told today, no, we're really not going to close it yet. Well, what are you going to do with it in the meantime? Because that's not safe to leave it like it is. You can see the rebar, and it needs to be temporarily fixed, which is what we do with things that we want to try to keep and use for a while. So I don't know, do you drive it regularly?
Yeah, on a fairly regular basis, I do. I understand the concerns, and to do it right, whether we do it a deck or anything, it's going to be closed for an extended period of time.
Yeah,
so
it will be.
And that's, at this point in time, I mean, if we're getting to an unsafe point in time, you're not going to be able to repair it, properly.
Quickly.
It's going to have to be closed until we can do that.
Yeah, I really am curious as to what the state's going to tell you about those exits off of 183 that come down to Rome Road. I'm puzzled about it. If this bridge becomes not an access point into Hayes or out of Hayes, why would those even exist? They don't have any reason to be there. If the people who live on Rome Road, are supposed to drive to Yosemite to cross, or at 8th Street near Marty Patterson's, then there's no reason for them to have those or maintain them or anything else. All that dirt underneath there, by the way, is from my farm. They took my dirt, our dirt, to build the overpass. So it's close, near and dear to my heart when I go up and down those exits, because I don't always use this road to get into town. If I'm going to go north, up into the shopping area north, I usually come in on 27th or 41st. But, when I go to work, because my office is on 13th, I come in on 12th Street. And I would guess that the traffic counts on this would give you at least pause to consider what you're doing. It's only 0.3 of a mile, but multiply that by 1,000 a day. And then you're putting together some numbers that it's costing the public. It's not just me. And I get it that I have a social contract, and I'm supposed to go along with the greater good by government, but it does affect a lot more people than just me, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just, Saturday, I went out to my family farm at Ellis. You're right, out by the complex, a lot of traffic. So I thought, I'm just going to sit over here. So I went across the top of the bridge, which that is our route to get on the south part of Hayes. Hayes is building a new fire station, so the response will be quicker, get on a highway and go.
Yeah.
The flow of the traffic that I saw, a lot of it was going on 8th Street, and a lot over the top, and a lot going south. The 10 minutes I sat there, I seen 2 vehicles go on 12th Street, go underneath the bridge. So everybody's going the smooth path and the fast.
Yeah, they don't want to go through the bumpy bridge, do they?
And, yeah, well, they want to get to wherever they're going, just like in the big city. They're taking the
Well,
route.
Neil, I watched, today I saw a City of Hayes pickup when I was coming down Rome Road, and I thought, well, what's that about? Well, then I figured out they're going out to their cemetery. Hayes owns a cemetery west of us. And so that's apparently a route that he had to have come across the bridge. When I saw him, I could tell that that's the route he took. So there are a lot of government cars and a lot of law enforcement that use that, though, I'll tell you. And there again, I think that's input that you ought to have on this thing. I think you ought to look closely at it's not always just the quantity, it's the kind of traffic sometimes. You're right, when they build the new fire station, that'll give a straighter shot down to the south part of Hayes, unless the derailment takes place underneath the overpass. And then maybe that's what those exits are for.
So educate me, when they took all the dirt and Old 40 used to just run straight through,
Yeah.
what year was that, when they built that bridge over top of the railroad? Do you recall?
It was about 66. It was sometime in there. I was off at Washburn by that fall, so I wasn't actually there for construction, but they had to build us a new driveway, and we were really excited about that, to have a paved driveway, and I think it was 66.
And then also, I don't know if you're aware, but from 183 bypass out, on Vine Street, KDOT is overlaying that all the way to Rush County too. So they're not just doing that stretch, they're doing the whole.
So that's in the 18 million? Okay, I didn't know it went that far south, so. But that's a lot of money they're going to spend out there, and they probably would like to know at least that you're thinking about this. It may affect that, that's all I'm saying. And it may open some doors for you too.
I believe that was back in October of 21, when we meaning the city and the county, sat together, and they knew we needed a new bridge over 230. It was too narrow, it was bottlenecked down.
Yeah.
And I believe there was some discussion at that time to fix that road, because there's going to be, like you said, a lot of traffic on it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting experience.
So there was some discussion on that, so.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Commissioner Burgess, you got anything? Thank you, John, for coming and speaking and update. I don't know. It's not to, rehash with the history of previous commissioners and stuff, but it's kind of that analysis by paralysis. Nothing's been done for 15 years or longer.
Yeah.
And I just keep going back. My concern as a county commissioner, again, is looking at the CLIP tool, which shows we have 195 bridges. We could do a bridge a year and not ever get back to. So it's, to me, when I look at that number and how are we going to do it as a county, it's just inevitable. It's just inevitable that we're going to have to look at closing bridges. I think that's just inevitable. So who's going to, if we close that one or some other one, then that community is upset about it. And we're in a position right now with the bill grant to leverage more dollars to repair our system somewhere. That's kind of the consideration that I'm just trying to weigh hard, is because these pictures, and I've driven on this bridge, I've been there, I know what it looks like, but this picture, if I didn't say this is 12th Bridge and I told you this is 125th, 125th looks just like this. Mm-hmm. And so.
What's the traffic count up there, do you know?
I don't know. Yeah. Top of my head, I don't know. We can find that out, but.
The traffic count may only be a portion, the weight count.
Yeah.
Oh.
You move the weight across,
Yeah.
In the heartbeat of our county is wheat, cattle, oil, and 125th is where the heartbeat of our county is moving our economic
Farm to market
needs.
That's what the roads are for.
That's essentially what I appreciate your comments and everything. That's what I'm trying to weigh, is we got 11 bridges throughout the county that are absolutely in poor condition, saying it's inevitable we got to do something. So that's essentially what I'm trying to weigh. I'm not trying to convince you one way.
No, I get what you're saying, Michael. I've restored 4 buildings more than 100 years old in Ellis County, and I mean, I've restored them. I didn't just repurpose them. My law office is a former church, the house on Main Street. I converted a stone dairy barn into a home at the farm. I moved Catherine O'Loughlin's house from in town to put it at our farm. And so I'm pretty tuned in to the concept of using what you have and not always just thinking, well, let's get rid of something or build something new. And what you're saying, I get, but on the other hand, I'm not going to take ownership of them failing to do their job when they didn't. And really, you shouldn't either. You got one chance at this thing to get it right.
Right.
Well, that's a great comment, because we have one chance to get it right for the entirety of the county.
Right.
We have to do what's best for the entirety of the county, and that's our main goal and try up here, is to do the best we can with what we have for the county.
And I'm not arguing with you. I agree with you. But when I hear...
We've got to take the ownership for the shortcomings of previous administrations and generations. The problem didn't start 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The problem started 50, 70, 80 years ago when the plan was not put in place to repair this stuff in timely manners.
Right.
So we're dealing with 80-year-old problems that we have to deal with today, in today's economy and today's market.
But please don't deal with them based upon whether the city of Hayes has part ownership or not. If this bridge were in the middle of Hayes, you'd have the same duty. You guys are in charge of bridges and roads in this county, just like the city is in charge of roads and bridges. And it's always been a source of heartache for me to watch how uncooperative those two entities have been. And it's like this, I'm not accusing you guys of that because you haven't been around long enough to do the dance. But this idea that we don't know where the boundary is, I mean, I do, and it's sure not a mile west of Hayes. And so please don't make your decision based upon the fact that it's partly in the city or not. And that's the feeling I'm getting here, is that really the city of Hayes is saying, well, we don't want to do anything with it. It's not ours anyway, and so we're not going to budget to help pay for this. Well, I don't care, honestly. If you guys can't figure out how to get cooperation from another governing body, you're not as good as I think you are. You've got lots of moving pieces. You seem to be able to do it up there on exit 157 and the road that was built around there. That's you did a lot of cooperating there, but there the state of Kansas was throwing money at you, and I think the state of Kansas would throw money at this if you approach it the right way. I just don't think we've done it. And I think once you talk to them about some of these factors I just talked about, they're at least going to scratch their heads and start thinking. And they might be surprised at some of the remedies they can come up with. So.
Okay.
And you've been around a year or two. Why can't the city and the county work together? This is what I'm getting at. Not saying, hey, I'm throwing over property lines, this and that.
No, that's a good question,
We can
Neil.
do more together than one individual on projects.
The
community happy and grow.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but, we've had personalities involved in this over the years that, would say they're playing checkers and we're playing chess and things like that. And, on the one hand, I think the city probably thinks of itself as being more professional because they've got more paid. It's just like Darren's job. He's not a manager, legally. He's the administrator, so he doesn't have the power that a city manager does. And he only has as much as the commissioners give him at any particular time. So he's got to play a different game than the city manager does. And I think that that's part of the problem is that while we're talking philosophically, I don't think the school district is blameless in these things either. They should be sitting down with you guys and maximizing the impact of your budgets. You know, I read in the newspaper now that we're talking about how to handle all the extra traffic over on the east side. And I thought, well, isn't that something that should have been talked about before the bond issue instead of after? And I think it wasn't because we didn't have as good a communication, probably the city didn't, in the school district. And I don't know whether you guys regularly, I wish you would go back to meeting regularly, your administrators and the governing bodies. I think you were headed in the right direction when you were doing that for a while, and maybe you're doing it again, I don't know. I just watch you on TV now, so I'm not going to add another meeting to my 4,000 that I've been to for the city. So, good question, though.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I say a couple words?
Sure.
My name is Matthew Wheeler. I live just a few hundred yards away from that bridge. I actually serve on a committee that you guys approve. I serve on the planning committee and represent the 3-mile zone, working with the county and the city on that. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Byrd said. One thing I wanted to point out, your staff member only spoke of one grant. Everybody that's been up here today, the EMS director, the museum director, everybody has talked about how they've gotten grants. There's piles of grants out there, and he's only looking at one grant to destroy property, and how many grants are available out there that he's not looked at that would restore the property. So I feel like, again, as Mr. Byrd said, you've had a whole pile of staff people that have said, let's destroy it, but nobody's saying, let's fix it. If you look at the wall behind you, that picture is full of structures that I bet all of you would have wished that somebody would have saved. And instead, all of those are gone. All of those are torn down. And I feel like this bridge is something that could be saved. And I am not an engineer, but I do have Google. And on Google, if you just Google epoxy bridge repairs, there's all kinds of stories about bridges with 80,000 cars that travel over them a day that they put epoxy coatings on. Has anybody looked at anything other than just the one type of method of repair? And again, I'm not an engineer, but it feels like nobody's really tried to save it very hard. And Mr. Younger, I really appreciate what you said about nobody's tried to work with the city. Maybe we really need to have a meeting and work with the city and get some shared ownership. I think it could be saved. And there are other issues. I think the EMT issue is a vital issue. The emergency traffic issue. I think that there's a lot of people that use that road, and again, back to what Mr. Byrd said, the traffic counts, the history of it, the design of the bypass, the design of the road, all of that should be taken into consideration. And so far, I feel like, again, not to just keep repeating myself, only people have stood up here that want to tear it down, and nobody's standing up here saying, let's save it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brendan, have you checked into anything like that? I know you're busy too. I mean, we're all short-staffed, so.
A few points of clarification. So the National Bridge Inventory Registry, it lists that bridge 1 mile west of Hayes. That's why I included it that way on the agenda. I know where the bridge is. I know where the city limits are. Just wanted to clarify that first. Grants that are out there. KDOT has 2 grants for bridges. The KLBIP, Kansas Local Bridge Improvement Program, which is for FAS route bridges, which this one is. Then they have the off-system bridge grant, which is only for off-system bridges, not this bridge. I cannot apply with an off-system, for the off-system grant for this bridge. KDOT also has their cost share program. well, not meant for bridges. Some counties and cities have applied to that for bridges. I haven't seen one selected yet, but it's an option as well. And then on the federal side, there are federal grants out there for bridges. We have pursued them. Myself, Darren, and the IT director went down to Wichita for the BIL meeting, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which met and talked with Federal Highway. And what we got from Federal Highway was, the question was asked, they want to see continuations, multiple parties. So like a section of roadway that spans between city, county, and another county or another city, they want to see projects like that. One of the people at that meeting asked, I have $1.5 million bridge I'd like to replace. That's in the small bridge project. How should I apply for this? They basically laughed him off the stage that that's not what they're going to be really looking at. We could. We don't have the staff to administer a grant like that, but we can. So we have looked at grants out there. And then the epoxy overlay, that's the polymer overlay I was discussing. The problem is that works when you catch it early enough. If that was caught in 2004, 2000, that's 100% the way you can go. Low-cost option to save the bridge. To do that epoxy overlay now is going to be almost the cost of a brand new deck. So we have considered options. We have looked at options. We do have traffic counts. You know, if you remember last year, I brought before the commissioners the traffic counts during the school season. So that'd be the most traffic that would be on that road. Didn't want to do it over the summer or during a break when traffic may not be using that, the school traffic. And it showed heavily weighted towards 8th Street. County did one previously, way before then, still showed heavily weighted before to 8th Street over this 12th Street bridge. So we have, I can't speak for my predecessors or those that came before me, but I have looked at that. I don't want to take structures out. I want everyone to get to where they're going safely. The problem is the counties and the cities didn't act in a timely manner to save this infrastructure. So something has to give somewhere. Just like with the fire we had in December 21. Was that an inconvenience having that bridge out where you're trying to fight fire on both sides of that, Darren? You had to go miles and miles out of your way and then try and dodge the power poles that were all down up there. I would have loved that bridge had been open then. Made my job a lot easier trying to put up barricades and keep people safe, but it wasn't. And I couldn't get across it. Neither could our fire trucks. So something has to give somewhere. We could change the application around, turn in 120 for closure and put on 820 as the application. Or just apply for 820 and fund 120 by itself. I'm bringing these to you to make your decision. Right. I don't decide what we close, what we open, what we do. My job is to present options to you. And it's your determination what option you would like me to pursue and take. Speaking with an engineer, they recommend go this way. Having a closure gives you more points towards being selected. Because not just, we have $20 million, they get probably $90 million worth of applications because now all these bigger structures are being included. So there's give and take. They want to keep all the districts similarly with similar amounts. District 3, we have 3% of the population in this state, but 1/5 the land mass. There's not as much funding out this way for roads, for bridges, just because the population center isn't here and the infrastructure isn't here. So of that $20 million, they may say $5 million for District 3. So how do we distinguish ourselves? Well, they have this option for closure of structures. And aging, poor structures give you more points to rank. It's a big reason why the county was selected 2 years ago when they closed that bridge on 140th Avenue, just east of Ellis. It could give us bonus points for this, or we can still apply without it and leave the bridge as it is. It's up to 3 of you. How would you like me to apply for this grant?
All of them.
Brandon, a question just real quick. Brandon, what would need to be done to that bridge right now today, just to make it so that people could drive across it fairly safely?
Right now, today, it would be closed for an overlay, an entire overlay and redeck.
Ask the question.
It's just putting material in those
Sorry,
holes.
Brandon.
Have
stop.
John.
John,
I'm sorry, yeah.
please ask the question at the, thank you.
I just asked, Brendan, what would need to be done, what could be done to that bridge right now, today, to smooth it out? And I'd like to see the engineer report that says you can't just go in and fix it temporarily without, I mean, maybe in the long run, 10 years, it's not good for the bridge because of the water issue, but for right now, for the next 2 or 3 years, for you guys to at least look at all your options, why don't you consider spending, I'm going to guess $40,000 or $50,000, and J-Corp would fix a lot of problems.
I guess define temporary, because it could, just like we had up on the Saline, it could fail it, and I don't want to lose any lives.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be a situation where it's falling into the ground, I mean, falling into the river,
'Cause
creek.
if it's been there and that many years and nothing's been done, I'd hate to look and see what the rebar actually looks like in there.
Yeah.
And try to temporary it.
Just curious as to whether your engineer had given you that option.
So,
Who's the engineer?
engineer we've been working with is Penco.
Yeah, up in-
Kirko Michael has been looked at it. They were the ones that looked at it in 2008, and Caw Valley in 2015. Termination in 2008 was there was over 50% delamination of that deck. They did not recommend the tear out. So those holes you see, there's holes where there's not potholes formed. There's
Yeah.
voids in there.
Right.
Moisture's getting in. That's why they don't recommend just the potholes, throw and mix in it. It's not making it too heavy. It's that you trap moisture in there and you allow more moisture to get in to rush out that rebar and cause it to expand and delaminate further. So if you take a chain out there, like the commissioner saw, drag a chain behind you on the deck. It's really low tech tool. It's a
You hear
besides
it.
it, yes, you can hear the hollow places on it.
Yeah.
And you saw how long it took us to find a solid place where there wasn't delamination. And we were in the on the eastern edge where there was less potholes visible, and you could hear all those hollow spots. You can direct me to throw material in those holes. It's not gonna give the bridge any more life. It'll smooth traffic. That's why I had my staff work on the abutment.
Well, that's
But
what I'm
same-
asking.
We can. They can decide to. But at the same time, that's money we're putting away on that we won't have for other structures. So it's up.
Well, I ran the
three.
numbers, just the householders on Rome Road and the property owners pay $800,000 a year in taxes. Now, not all of that goes to the county, but it's not a minimal amount out there that, I mean, we deserve to have at least that for a while. I don't know what you're talking about, spending $5,000?
It'd be more than that for the amount of delamination, just to smooth for traffic, which I wouldn't recommend doing because you're accelerating the wear of that deck by doing it. Traffic, it's smooth, it's good, but the problem is what you don't see underneath and you don't feel.
Right.
That's what concerns me, and that's why
But if
I
you're going
won't- I
to
can't
replace it
recommend.
anyway, what difference does it make?
you may shorten the lifespan in order to get it replaced.
It's like setting, and I didn't believe it either until my father showed me. It's like setting a 5-gallon bucket, empty one, in a basement. Next morning, there'll be a circle there. That's what Brandon's trying to say. It's trapping it in there, and it's going to worsen it.
I'm just being selfish now. It'd be nice to be able to drive across there and not have to put another seatbelt on.
And we're a county unit road system, which means everyone pays for every road, every bridge. Tax dollars from John and Victoria, and residents that live in Victoria go for this bridge. They go for the
Right.
bridge north of Ellis. They go for the 6 miles south of Ellis. They go for down by Pfeiffer. So it's not just, you can't just look at it as, there's these homes here that pay this much in tax, they should get this. That dollars go for the entire road network and infrastructure system. If we were township-based, 100%, you can do it that way. County would still have the bridge, but the township would have that road.
It's a community-driven
Yes, it's
share.
what benefits the entire community.
I just meant that, I know that everybody's rowing in the same boat.
Yeah.
Brandon, what's the,
Okay, sure, come in.
Hi, I'm Glenn Deal, ex-county commissioner. And when I got on, we were well aware of that 8th Street Bridge is being finished up, 12th Street Bridge, Yosemite Bridge, and the bridge north of Ellis. We've known this for 15 years. There was a plan in place, because Commissioner Burgess said about long-term planning. There was a long-term plan in place. Unfortunately, the county had other priorities, and the plan went to the wayside. That's my problem with a long-term plan. Commissions change every 2 years. I just want you guys to say, well, we're going to have a long-term plan, but really, are you going to have a long-term plan? Commissioners change, priorities change, and this, like I said, there was a plan in place. We were going to have 1 mil going to a special bridge fund, just for those 3 bridges. Once the commission changed, we needed a courthouse, we needed an administration center, we needed EMS. That disappeared. So just a little history, little update, and I also use that bridge every day, and it would be a real pain in the drain, and I pay a lot in taxes on these oil wells for my business. For me to go around, I mean, I might be a little selfish, but I live on 12th Street also, so I see the traffic going across that bridge. And I guarantee you, I saw the sheriff here this morning. When I see the sheriff cars go flying down 12th Street, they're not flying down 27th, they're not flying down 8th Street, they're going down 12th Street to get out of town. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, John. What's the application without the bridge? So you said we can apply without the bridge. What would be the
It
amount?
looked like
Just
the
50?
same, we just wouldn't have that structure listed. What I would recommend doing then, if you decide not to apply with this structure, is allow me to apply for the one on the county line north of Ellis that is, it's oversized for a cattle crossing. They don't utilize it as a cattle crossing anymore, so it can actually be, it needs to be repaired. We were just going to replace it with culverts or a CMP, precast structure that would lower it from being a bridge to a culvert classification, so the road would never close permanently. It would close for us to do our repairs. That's the only time of closure, and the county would receive $50,000 in funding for that, because it's a minimum of $50,000 for one structure or $1,000 per linear foot of bridge. So you would say, it's roughly estimated, I mean, this was done last fall. This came up pretty quick. Normally I do the KLBIP and off-system bridge grants every fall. That's why you guys were aware, we signed that agreement with Penco to do the design work for our off-system bridge just the beginning of the year here. They surprised everyone and released it in the spring as well. So we just finished getting word from the fall application whether we received the grants or not, and they turned around and said it's open again until the end of May, or May 25th. I would, if you would allow me to, if you don't want to do 820, allow me to put the bridge north of Ellis, northwest of Ellis, by the county line. That doesn't need to be a bridge. I need to repair that structure anyways. I plan on repairing it, but I can get $50,000 if we're selected for this grant. It's not in a bad enough shape where I have to do the work today on it, but it's something in the back of my mind that I need to do work on, the county would need to repair in the upcoming years, and we can get funding for another bridge for doing the repair. We'll spend $50,000 if we do a precast structure, but we'll get $50,000 back. So you're looking at, if this was 176 with our fall estimate, taking $50,000 off of that, plus our precast, you're still under the $200,000 for 120, for a $1.2, $1.3 million rehab project. That's going to improve safety by making the bridge deck slightly wider, because that's just like this bridge here. It's a bridge built from the 40s, 22 foot wide, 24 foot in spots. It would increase the size to driving lanes to 25.6, 27 feet. It's not going to be a 40-foot wide 4-lane superhighway, but it would fit the needs better of the county and the traveling public.
Gentlemen, any thoughts?
When's the May so this is spring, May application.
So they
Do we
only,
expect a fall
I
application?
don't expect a fall. They do it once a year. So the fact they let it go this spring, I plan on talking with them in 2 weeks at our spring conference to see why they chose to release one in spring, and if they're going to be doing one in fall. But I won't know until after, when that meeting, when I get a chance to talk to them, it'll be after our last meeting of this month. So we wouldn't have time to decide to reapply differently, or get the approval from the three of you in a public setting to apply differently.
I guess, Darren, what's in our bridge fund right now? Any idea, just ballpark? Because we have been setting money aside for, like what you said, Mr. Deal, that in emergency situation, so.
Yeah, so just to expand a little bit on what Mr. Deal was saying, 3 years ago, the only money the county set aside for all road and bridge projects, that's 195 bridges and 1,300 miles of road, was $392,000 a year, which was less than 1 mil being transferred into the Special Highway Road and Bridge Fund. That was 2 years ago. Last year, that was doubled essentially to $800,000. This year, the commission, or last year's commission approved to increase that to $1.6 million. And this is right almost at 4 mils now that we're putting away to start catching up on all these projects, and also to build a reserve fund so that way once a bridge were to fail, like the Saline River Bridge at $1 million+, we have a reserve fund there to take care of an immediate need with cash instead of having to borrow or bond out money. So we are putting away about 4 mils, and as the commission has discussed in previous meetings, we are looking at potentially trying to increase that more next year. We haven't set a dollar amount yet, obviously, and that's not approved, but the commission has made significant improvements on putting money away to start making road and bridge infrastructure improvements throughout the county. It's just going to take a while to get that reserve fund built back up to a couple million, but also start doing projects. And once the money's in there, then you also have to take into account of design, engineering, and utility relocation, which is usually about another year after that before a bridge actually starts getting torn out or replaced or a new deck. So it's going to take a little bit of time to start seeing the effects of those increased tax dollars being spent on road and bridge, but there is a considerable amount of effort over the last couple of years to go from $329,000 to $1.6 million this year, and hopefully continue to look a little bit more of that in the future years.
And the Saline River Bridge did not look like 12th Street Bridge, did not look like 125th. You didn't see any delamination or anything. It was potentially caused, the pier actually buckled, whether that was from overweight, overspeed traffic on it, or debris in the channel bending the beam, but the deck had no issues. It had a clean bill of health from its last bridge inspection. There was no concerns on that. So when we got a call that the bridge felt funny from one of the producers up there, and we saw what we saw, that was not expected. That pier, the beam that holds up the pier, sheared. It buckled and sheared. Whether the flange was bent from overweight traffic on it, whether it was from debris in the channel from the flooding the county had here in 2019, building up and holding all that pressure against the steel beam, I can't tell you. I don't know what it looked like 10 years ago. All I can look at is the picture from the 2018 inspection and the 2020 inspection, and I saw no deformation damage in any of those pictures. And then I went out there in August of 21, and that bridge, the one side was 8 inches lower than the other. So it had no warning signs, no concerns, had a clean bill of health, all things considered. And it failed on us, and that was $1.2 million to replace. It was a lower bridge. It didn't have such big piers. That's where a lot of this cost comes in as well, is that that bridge sits so much higher than the channel. If you replace the piers as well, you're going to incur a lot higher cost. Just like the Saline River Bridge over on Codell Avenue, that fracture critical bridge, that's a massive bridge. That one is going to be easily $3 to $5 million to replace if you want to go non-fracture critical on it. Now, that's one of those ones in our top 20 bridge list that we need to address. Whether catching it before it turns, the deck turns to this, and doing a polymer overlay like we have in the plans, or budgeting $3 to $5 million for a replacement, or budgeting $2 million and spending $1 million in earthwork to lower the grade of the road, to get better sight lines and better approach. If you go up on that bridge and you look down to the east, you can see the 4 abutments and piers from the old structure that was down there to the east before that road was straightened out over time. It's just, we're behind the 8 ball. Something has to give somewhere.
Any comments, concerns, questions?
Well, I was contacted by residents out west of town that do use it, the Sack family, Jeff and Gary Sack, and they both wanted to voice their concerns over the closure of it. I do understand it. I also understand that we need to make an application and get it. The only way we're going to start is by starting. So we need to put a foot out, and whether it's this up on the county line or this one, we need to get started. And there's no guarantees that we're going to be selected for any grants. So we have to start repairs. And that's been my focus is to get repairs started. Even though as focused as I am on it, my efforts will not be realized, or any efforts will not be realized for a year and a half. So I just want the public to know that the process that started today will see very, very little action publicly for a year and a half, more or less.
Yeah, the off-system grant that the county applied for, or I applied for on the county's behalf last fall, so it's applied for in '22, it's called the 2024 Off-System Highway Grant. Because design work, finding contractors, when Saline River failed, we had one contractor bid on it. The state's having to push out their projects and the bids that they let, no longer a 1 year or 2 year start date. They have 3 years, or in some cases 4 years before the start date. They start getting penalized for not hitting their start date. So if you're bidding it out today and the start date's 3 years, it takes 4 or 5 months for construction. We need to make a decision soon, or make a decision 10 years ago and not be in this. But we're here now, so what are we going to do from here?
I agree. Well, gentlemen, I think, unless there's other public comment.
Yeah.
Because I know we have a number of people out here that may want to make a comment here before we make any decision.
Name's Michael Brule. I farm west of Hayes. Our farm started in 1890, and I'm sure we use that bridge quite a bit. Mr. Byrd had a real good voice there when he said that the city, we have 2 main roads coming into the city, to the heart of the city, and to cut one of those off, I don't think that's a good idea, and I think we ought to get with the city to tell them what's going to happen or what's planned, get them involved. Because there's a lot of people that come to spend money, go to work, use those 2 roads coming into town, cut one off. I don't think that's a good idea. Like I said, it goes into the heart of Hayes, Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have anything else?
I have nothing else. Michael, anything?
And we did meet with city staff out there on it to discuss options on this bridge, and if they were interested in taking ownership of it, or if they were fine with us applying for closure of the structure. And they didn't have an issue with the closure of it. They didn't feel that would affect the city of Hayes. Can't speak on their behalf, but that's what they explained to us out in the field and through emails with Darren. It's, whenever you close something, it's an inconvenience to someone.
Well, this is not a meeting to close a bridge.
No,
This is a meeting to look at options and list this bridge as an option. There's absolutely no decision that's being made to close it here. So with that being said, I would be in favor of putting it on the application as a possibility. If that gets us a ranking to look at in the future, that would be fine. We can address the closure publicly if it comes to that. But I would like everybody to know I do hear their concerns, and I'm trying to do the best that we can do to with what we have.
That's why my staff addressed the approach where there was the bump where the asphalt has just settled out of the way. So that way
And
it's not smooth.
there
but-
may need to be a few things that we could do for some improvements, you know, in the near future. But if we get to a point where it's unsafe for travel, it's going to be unsafe for travel, and it's going to be closed, whether we close it or it falls.
Yep.
So I'd rather be proactive and prevent an accident than having a catastrophic failure. And I think the city and the county would be on the same regards, that nobody wants to see that.
As far as an engineer part of it, what are they telling us? As far as when they inspected it, do we need a different weight limit on it?
Yep. Lower the weight limit to 15 tons. I'd have to look through the bridge report. Again, I looked through it yesterday. It's posted at 15 tons at a minimum, and that's either pursue options of closure or reconstruction. Not just rehabbing the deck, but replacing the deck, so be reconstruction.
Because I'm with Commissioner Liker. I mean, we've got to make it safe, but temporary, that's not a good word, because it could happen. We've seen it on a good bridge up on the Saline River.
Yeah.
I just don't want nothing to happen.
Brennan, how often is this bridge inspected at its current rate?
Every 2 years at the moment.
Okay, when was the last inspection?
2022.
Okay.
Just this
So
past.
it's recent.
Yes. And with their findings on that, they have a hit list of items and noteworthy structures, they call it. This is listed on there to reduce the weight limit across that bridge and look at possible closure as part of a KLBIP application, or to look at reconstruction.
Can we do multiple things? Can we lower the weight limit and include it on our application?
Mm-hmm. It's still an open bridge. So a lot of places that close bridges and leave them closed, like Ellis County in the past has done, those bridges were already weight restricted, or they were a steel truss bridge that aren't up to the current standards of our equipment and of the traveling public. It was a one-lane bridge with wooden planks for the driving deck. It was built in the 1910s. This one's a little bit newer, but it still doesn't fit the needs. Just like Yosemite Avenue, we did those repairs to that deck. That deck wasn't as far gone as this deck is. That repair we did bought it more time. We do that on this deck, it doesn't increase the life of it. All it increases is spending money that will eventually have to be respent anyways when you reconstruct it.
Well, I think if we have an engineer's report out there currently stating that the weight limit needs to be restricted, I think that's first and foremost. I think that needs to be done, not when, but now.
Yep.
That's the first thing that needs done. So, for a safety aspect.
For low, when it was low rated, it still allowed legal loads. They recommend us lowering the posting. And it was, they said, based on what happens here, whether we post it or start looking at closure options. Because at the 15-ton limit, that bridge should last forever. All things being considered, without degradation on the, more degradation on the deck, that weight limit, the way you rate bridges, you have an operating limit and an inventory limit. One is higher than the other, and it's up to the county public works director and the engineering staff they work with to decide what they post at. You can post at the higher one, but you're going to see deterioration of the structure. If you post at the lower one, it's like a paper clip. I don't know if I showed that trick with the two new commissioners, but last year I gave either commissioner a paper clip. I had everyone straighten it out, and I bent it. And we bent it, and we bent it. And after 4 bends, it breaks. As you guys saw when we drove on Ellis Avenue, you can see how the ground and the pavement moves as vehicles go across it. Bridges do the same thing. So you're getting that micro movement on it. So if you post that lower limit like the 15 tons is, you shouldn't see that flexure. You shouldn't see any accelerated wear on it.
No. Like I said, we have an engineering report that states it needs to be lower. I think that's obvious. It needs to be lower. That's our start.
That's our first step, yep.
But I also think that for today's purposes, we need to put an application in.
Yep.
We need to start the process, and I think we need to go ahead and at least look at options and put all options on the table, whether it's repairing it, whether it's using it, but we've got time. Even if we get selected, we have time to get more traffic data. We have more time to get all this stuff going on. We have time to address whether or not we actually use it in the closure process. But if we don't start, the process isn't started.
Yeah. I would just recommend, if we're on the fence about closure on it, don't apply with this structure. Because if we decide to apply with it and we get the higher ranking because of closure and we decide to not do it, it's going to affect all the grants that I apply for through KDOT in the future negatively. So if we're on the fence, let me apply for the structure outside of Ellis and get $50,000 towards this grant, because I'm not going to be closing a road. I'm going to be taking a bridge and replacing it with a culvert. It looks like a bridge, smells like a bridge. It's just, it handles the storm level for out there. What's out there is oversized. So it needs to be, it can be replaced with an appropriate size structure to handle the water levels that are out there. And we still receive funding without having to go back and say, actually, we don't want to take this structure away.
So I guess my suggestion would be can we essentially prepare 2 grants? And we have 2 meetings yet before the 25th. So you can prepare a grant for the county line bridge and have that as an option, and prepare a grant using 12th Street. We have a couple meetings before before you submit them. Bring this conversation back up at another commission meeting to make that decision as far as what are we going to submit. I think that allows us, or at least me as a commissioner, to do a little bit more in the next couple weeks as far as what the public has asked us to kind of do, is look at what it's going to do for traffic, what's it going to do for entry. Can we talk to KDOT as their plan? Allow us to do a little bit of due diligence, but you can't not start preparing an application. Can't wait until the 24th to do it. So
correct.
That would be, I guess, my suggestion. Maybe the other commissioners is prepared to.
If it's going to hurt us to do it on the 12th Street one, go for the one up on the.
It would hurt if we apply for it with intention of closure, that we plan on closure, and then we go back and say,
that would be
actually, we don't want to.
Look,
and that's.
If we apply for it, we just outright apply for it, and then we're going to close, and then we get it. I don't think there's really, we can say you could step back and not take it, but you
can still take the funding.
So I think before we submit it, let's, again,
Yeah.
get prepared on both, and let's continue the conversation a little bit.
And that was my intention about bringing this before the commission, to make sure the commission had an informed decision, the public was aware of it, the neighbors were aware of it. Didn't want to get in a situation that I stepped into when I started here, where the county had accepted a grant with a closure item. I come in, bridge is built, we have to close this bridge, and no one knew. That's what I didn't want to have happen again. This is an important bridge. Both of them are important, but I will put both of these together. I can join the meeting by phone, but for the next 2 meetings, we have our spring conference for the Kansas Highway Association that I'm on the board on, that I have to attend. And then we have a government safety day with Caterpillar that I've been asked to represent Ellis County at. But I can get those options. I can talk with our engineer to get both written up and have them both brought before the commission, and I can listen into the meetings and join by phone if need be.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that too.
We'll table it we'll get them both done and table it till the next.
All righty, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Scott Brown with the food service contract.
Oh, he's,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Thank you guys for hearing us.
Thank you.
Thank you all. legs just a bit.
If you're going to speak at the mic and,
Everybody.
oh,
I always get kind of nervous on that.
no, you'll have to, because this is a Kansas Open Meeting Act, so you will have to state your name and tell us your issue or concern.
I'm Sharon Ryan, and I live close by the bridge, and I use that bridge every day, and I hope they do not close it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, Mr. Scott, morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I had sent out the agenda item in reference to the food service, and since then I've learned that the one that I'm going to propose for that bid has removed that CPI. They're going to honor that one, and we'll talk about that. But so as you read the agenda item, that CPI will not be included in that. They're going to absorb that for the first year within the current bid. So that's a good thing. So you guys should have received some spreadsheets, but since we had that, I went in and printed off a new one, and I'll get it to you guys. It's the same numbers.
Thank you. That's an extra.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go. Let me grab you another one, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think I introduced myself, but I will. Scott Brown, Ellis County Sheriff. So in reviewing the jail contract for food, as you guys are probably aware, it's quite fluid. Lots of things affect how many people we have in our jail day to day, that being corrections, court services, the courts, law enforcement as a whole, whether it's Highway Patrol, Hayes Police Department, Ellis Victoria, or my department, the Sheriff's Office, as well as the ABC, Wildlife and Parks, could potentially be DEA, FBI. It's a variety of things. So with that, we sat down and did a lot of studying on this, and we got 4 bids in. Benchmark, which was number 1, which is the lowest. Consolidated would have been the second one. Summit the third, and Cellmate was actually Summit would be the 4th highest, and then Cellmate. So based upon the numbers that we received, and based upon the spreadsheet you can see in front of you, I took the 60 to 69. We're averaging currently between 65 and 70 inmates right now. 65 seems to be that sweet spot right now, but that could change. And with that, that's the reason we went with Benchmark. As you can see with the spreadsheet, a significant difference in dollars, although it doesn't sound like much, but when you start figuring 3 meals a day times 365. So the spreadsheet that says number of inmates, and it's got the big yellow on it, what I did is I broke that down in a low, medium, and a high, and that is a comparison between Consolidated and Benchmark. Okay, so that, since those were the 2 closest, obviously Consolidated bid their numbers of a cost savings to the county at 50 to 59, where Benchmark bid their savings that could give us the best savings to the county at the 60 to 69, which is where we fall. So with that said, we potentially could be looking at $4,270.50 a year savings because that's at midpoint. And obviously, if we were higher than that, it would be $4,533 on the high end. And as those numbers climb, we save more. So my recommendation is to go with the Benchmark Government Solutions. I received a contract from them also. That contract is good for 3 years, but we can renew it every year. We can sit down and discuss it. Also, if we decide that we want to terminate that contract, we need to give a 30-day notice to them. I might add on the agenda, it didn't show that Mr. Jeter had reviewed that, but I did get it to Mr. Jeter. He reviewed it and saw nothing wrong with the contract. Is that correct, Ms.?
Yes.
Okay. So contract-wise, that is a good thing. It's pretty straightforward boilerplate type stuff. And as you can see, I've proposed the $203,998.50. That's fluid again because we don't know, but that's the highest we could be. We currently have 6 inmates out of county, and we're not paying food for them within our facility, but we're out running 6 of them out, and they've been out for about 3 or 4 weeks now because we're at that capacity. We bring them back, then all of a sudden we're full, then we have to haul them back out again, so that seems to be our number that we're running at. My recommendation, as I said earlier, was Benchmark Government Solutions. I think that they will be a good resolve for us, saving some money for the county. Intentions is that we would move towards implementing that company if you guys award that bid to them in January of 2024. I guess I stand for questions.
Sheriff, have you worked with Benchmark in the past?
I have not. However, I did follow up with some references. I've called the local sheriffs. Within these, if you would like to look at them, they're just a bunch of filling, but they listed who they work with within the state of Kansas, those sheriff's offices that I reached out and spoke with, one of them being, several. They all like working with them. They said they're really good to work with. My conversations with them, the gentleman that I spoke with that put the bid proposal together was very open, answered all my questions that I had. And I will say, though, in defense of Consolidated, we didn't have any issues with them. It's just they're pricing themselves out, and we're trying to save money, as we discussed, and I think that's the way the commissioners wanted us to go and look at some bids and open that up. So,
will they be providing a person in-house?
Probably 2. They will have probably a full-time for sure, and then maybe a part-time. And then we use some jail staff that we select to help out in the kitchen to offset some costs. So otherwise, they'd have to have 2 full-time people to get that done. And what that would be is 2 hot meals and 1 cold meal. And in addition to that, and I haven't spoken to that, I did list at the bottom, you'll see the staff meals. So our staff, because they cannot leave the facility, are fed. It's a working lunch, and it's been that way since we started our food service. It's something that we provide to them, so they're able to eat, and it's about $7,000. So the total would be potentially, because it's fluid again, about $210,998, and that'll be a budgetary thing. I'm just asking for an award for a contract with a particular company, Benchmark.
The other ones that you had talked to about the Benchmark, about the same, 65 to 70-ish?
They were a little larger. Sumner County is one of them, so their savings was greater because they're jumping up into there. And then they didn't provide me those higher numbers, 100 and some, because we're not there. So I outlined in that RFP where our numbers fall, and so this is what they provided us.
Okay, thank you.
Real questions? Thank you for your work. You came in, I was looking at my notes here, on March 14th and came and asked to do this work. You've done the work, so I appreciate you following through.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'll move to approve Benchmark Government Solutions to be awarded the 2024 Ellis County Sheriff's Office contract for inmate meals.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
Commissioners, do you want to sign that? My name is on there. I can sign it on your behalf if you'd like me to, whatever you feel is warranted, or Mr. Jeter.
sure the commission was. Okay, Scott signs it.
I think it's fine.
I'll sign it on behalf of the commission then. Okay. Thank you.
He's protecting us, he better.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Copy of the contract?
Well, certainly. I have that for you.
Read my mind.
Okay, Mr. Lyle, with the December 15th fire reimbursement.
Lyle's not here this morning. We actually have, over at the fire station, we have a crew in from Michigan training us on our new records management system, which is part of the new public safety system. And since I had to be here, I asked him to stay there to spend time learning that new system. So I'm going to speak on his behalf, which is kind of beneficial because he wouldn't have probably said when he was up here, but most of what this agenda item is about is because of the work that he did. His persistence and talking with FEMA and submitting, I don't know, hundreds of pages of documentation, working with our K-Camp insurance to get declining of coverage. So going back to the December 15th fire, the governor declared a state of disaster and emergency for multiple counties. I don't know how many, if it was dozens, several dozens counties throughout the state. When that fire happened, it was declared as a wind event. When the wind event had happened, it basically set Ellis County up so that way we could not apply for any fire-related damages or expenses that we had. The interesting piece to that, as I said, is a fire or a wind event. However, as listed in here, the Public Works end up having several bridges that were wood bridges that were burnt, guardrails that were burnt. They were awarded. So Lyle's persistent, and he was the only emergency manager that we know of that became persistent with the state and with FEMA to continue to apply for these grants. We were eventually awarded within the last month over $70,000 for those expenses for what we incurred, and those goes back to the rates for. I know we refer to them often as the FEMA rates, so we can't say what a truck is worth. It's worth different in the open market, but what FEMA says is what most what government agencies use. So a fire engine is a certain amount of dollars, a brush truck is a less amount. Every single piece of apparatus, EMS, the sheriff, Public Works, even if Bobby was doing work and driving a county car, there's even a rate for that. But those are the rates we got reimbursed for. To our knowledge, we're the only county in the state that pushed it to this point. So big kudos to Lyle in staying persistent. I would also state that as of last year when we did go to DC, we asked Senator Moran's help to continue to push FEMA to help us with these funds as well. So once again, I can't give direct credit to him as well, but hopefully with his staff speaking up on behalf of Ellis County, we did get some of these funds back. So the Public Works already got their funds. We just received ours. I'd have to ask Fern, but it got deposited into our account maybe 2-3 weeks ago. The funds can't be necessarily used for anything since it was a reimbursement for an expense over 2 budget cycles already. Basically, it just goes into the fire district's budget as a other miscellaneous revenue, and it'll just basically boost the unencumbered balance for the coming years. And like I say, that amount was just over $70,630. So, like I say, give credit to Lyle for his work and making sure that he stayed with them and provided the documentation to get that work. So we just want to give the commission an update that we finally were awarded, and now that we're 16 or months past that or wherever we are now, it finally took that long to get some of those reimbursements, but we're appreciative of it.
Okay,
Very
thank you.
good.
Very good.
Tell Lyle thank you.
Okay, Ellis County Council on Aging, Darren?
Guess I didn't introduce myself earlier, but Darren Myers, the county administrator. As the commission is aware, the budget cycle has begun for 2024, and part of the budget cycle includes the outside agencies that present to the Ellis County Commission for funding each year, to a total tune of about $1.2 million, or just over $1.1 million was what was allocated this year. Part of those fundings requests go to a council on the aging, which is made up of different representative volunteers from the county, usually try to represent Hayes, Ellis, and the Victoria communities. And Ilona Patterson was the member on that committee, and she's trying to retire and sell her business and move on and enjoy her retirement. So she had also asked to get off the Council on the Aging. And speaking with both her and the Ellis rep, they had the same person in mind that they feel would be a good representative on the board for the Council on Aging. And since then, I've reached out to her. She's willing to serve, and she can come on I don't remember the exact date that we are meeting with with the council. I believe it's May 24th, but she's willing to serve. And in today's world, usually when you get somebody to volunteer, you want to jump on it and take advantage of it while you can. So as you can see in your packet, Marilyn Stoffel is ready to be on that. I have filled out her application for volunteer service, and instead of trying to meet with her on fast notice before this commission meeting, I just attached the blank form, volunteer form for her, and when she comes to our meeting on May 4th, if the commission would approve, I'll have her sign that form, and then we can fill it in, or turn it into the clerk's office.
I think it's great.
Like I say, anytime somebody volunteers in there, hats off to them. Thank her very much. So,
I'll move to appoint Marilyn Stoffel to the Ellis County Council on Aging.
Seconded.
okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Okay. County Commission report, Darren?
No, a couple things, but I'll just wait till next week since we're running a little long today. Nothing pressing.
Okay. Okay, executive session?
I move the Board of County Commissioners recess to executive session for 30 minutes pursuant to the attorney-client privilege exception. Subject to be discussed during the executive session is contractual agreements. Those in attendance in addition to the Board of County Commissioners are Bill Jeter, Scott Brown, and Darren Myers. Yeah. We'll resume 30, so it'll be
11:25?
25? Yeah, 11:25.
A couple minutes. That works. Yeah. Seconded.
Okay.
Cold.
I know. You could hang me. You can hang me in here.
Like I just kept getting
Bobby,
this cool
how about
breeze
you?
circulating.
I'm
over
freezing. I am freezing.
Michael was over there shivering.
It is not good.
A long one, wasn't it?
How are you? Good.
Yeah.
Oh, Kelly, who's in charge of this?
It feels awesome.
It was
I was
You
telling
think it
Dave.
does?
It was turned past 8.
Did you hear what I said? I said, I
Oh, that's great.
I said, I can't stand that man. She's like,
Everybody,
talk
you
like
Dave.
Verno.